And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSIServices Talking Business, our interview program talking with leaders in the field of digital marketing, direct marketing, banking, insurance, customer service, and business education. And today we are very pleased to talk with Michael Plunkett, who is the president and CEO of the Association for Postal Commerce. He's had a long career, worked with the Postal Service for a good part of his career. And Michael, good to talk with you today. How are you doing?
Doing well, Ken. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Very good. Well, we saw you were asked to comment in a New York Times story this week on the Postal Service and the new plan that the Postal Service announced this week. What were your impressions of the new plan that the Postal Service announced this week?
Well, it certainly has far-reaching implications for the Postal Service, for the companies and consumers who depend on it, and would, pretty dramatically reshape the Postal Service and the postal system over the next 10 years. Relies very heavily on support from Congress and from extracting much higher revenues from users of the Postal Service's monopoly products. It also has some fairly ambitious goals for the Postal Service's package business. I think there's still a lot of details we don't know yet. There'll be some product changes that we haven't seen yet, including some additional details. I think everyone's focused on the possible reductions in service performance for first-class mail. We need to see more details on that, but it's been coming for a long time. We've been waiting this for a couple of years now, and now that we've seen it, I think we need to see more.
Well, certainly those of us who follow the Postal Service for many years, I had the privilege of working with through the Direct Marketing Association, represent the catalog industry and the publishers, and also financial service marketers who depend on the Postal Service. Certainly a change in usage of first-class mail. What do you see as really the history of the change in the way businesses and consumers have used the Postal Service and as the internet era has evolved?
Well, certainly the advent of the internet, and especially the advent of commercial activity on the internet, has had a lasting and significant effect on people's use of the mail, both businesses and consumers. The internet is a very good substitute for mail in a lot of cases, including especially when it comes to financial services companies, things like bill presentment and bill payments for credit cards or other services. And so the Postal Service has experienced a steady erosion in volume for its monopoly products as the internet has provided alternatives to many prominent uses by business mailers, including financial institutions. That said, there's still a significant proportion of the American public that greatly prefers to do certain kinds of transactions like bill payment using paper statements. And so while mail has been eroding, there's still a significant amount of it, and it's likely to have a very long tail, although I would argue that some of what we've seen from the Postal Service this week will tend to accelerate some of those mail declines.
Yes, and certainly for mailing notifications and also for doing marketing promotions. There's still nothing like getting a paper document for important invitations or financial service products that you are considering. Now, one of the things that the mailing industry has been focusing on, we talked to folks at letter shops and printers in our series, is what happened in the second half of 2020. There seemed to be differences in delivery of mail, especially in fourth quarter. The COVID epidemic had an impact on the workforce at the Postal Service as people were affected. What did you see happening in the dynamics of the Postal Service in 2020, reacting to the pandemic, and then changes in the second half of the year?
Well, what we actually observed was, especially in December, gridlock in parts of the Postal Service's network, and there were multiple forces at work. As you noted, we had a pandemic that undoubtedly created localized labor shortages for the Postal Service, particularly in areas that might have been COVID hotspots where they had numbers of employees who, if not directly affected, were quarantined because they'd been in close contact with somebody who had been infected. So that was clearly a factor. You also had historically high package volumes this peak period, essentially from Thanksgiving through Christmas. That's the peak shipping season every year. This year was compounded by the fact that many people have shifted a lot of their retail buying to online purchases, which necessitate shipment. And so in many facilities, the Postal Service was just overwhelmed, and mail stopped moving in certain facilities. And in any network, when you take out certain nodes, it has cascading effects throughout the network. And we saw some of the worst service performance for letters and flat mail that we've ever seen.
Well, that's been what people have mentioned to me, the reliability factor, being able to receive mail that's been sent out, either personal, and then concern about the deliverability of commercial mail. Now, as has been described, the e-commerce has developed so fast during the pandemic. People like ourselves working at home, receiving more packages at home, and that the alternatives providers such as FedEx, UPS could not handle the volume, and that net resulted in the Postal Service receiving an unprecedented amount of small package delivery. We see the delivery truck drivers on our street every day doing the best they can with that. How do you see the Postal Service handling this? Is this something that could be part of their future?
Well, that kind of remains to be seen. The Postal Service does really have a significant structural advantage in servicing consumers. They have a delivery network that goes to every residence 6 days a week. And so they have a low-cost last-mile network that they use to serve their own commercial customers, but also to provide last-mile delivery services to UPS, Amazon, and FedEx. Now, as e-commerce volume continues to grow, then those competitors start to get additional delivery density. And in sort of high density areas, they may be able to take some of that volume back away from the Postal Service as it becomes economically viable for them to do their own last mile delivery. You've seen that with FedEx in the last year. They've taken a lot of ground last mile volume back from the Postal Service and now have their own ground product for residential deliveries. And that's one of the risks to the Postal Service is as volume continues to grow, these competitors can make it economical to do more residential delivery than they have in the past.
Yes, and one of the challenges that's been written about is a growing deficit at the United States Postal Service, reaching $9 billion, possibly approaching $10 billion this coming year. How do you see that as a factor? Is that something that is just inevitable in terms of the responsibility the Postal Service has to deliver mail to every part of the country as a vital service, or is that something that can be made up over time with innovation?
Oh, I'd back up a little bit, and I have to actually wonder how big the projected deficits really are. The plan the Postal Service put out this week is predicated on the belief that they will lose $160 billion over the next 10 years, and they produced projections that support their plan. The first year of those projections is 2021, where they project to lose $9.7 billion. We're halfway through 2021 fiscal year for the Postal Service, and the Postal Service just reported that they are net profitable through the first half of the year. There's no way they will lose $10 billion over the last 6 months of 2021. So if the projections are that far off in the first year, one has to wonder how reliable the out-year projections really are, and if that $160 billion is really a realistic number of what we're looking at going forward.
And certainly for those who follow the Postal Service for a period of time, there's always been this overhanging issue about the retirement fund.
Yeah.
That has been out, it's been discussed about, can it be reduced, could it be shifted? Many Postal And And then the discussion now of their medical benefits being absorbed, as many municipal or federal workers are, by Medicare. What do you, are those remedies? What's the status with the retirement fund issue and also the healthcare options?
Well, actually, I mean, those are all elements of the Postal Service's plan to varying degrees. They call for congressional relief. And it's true, the 2006 Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act really imposed some significant pre-funding obligations on the Postal Service to fund retiree health benefits. And you're correct, the Postal Service is arguably overfunded or been overcharged by OPM for employees of the Post Office Department back pre-1970. Then they also do not enjoy the same benefit that other employers get because their retirees are not required to take Medicare, and Medicare integration is part of the Postal Service's plan. All of these possible remedies, though, require action from Congress. Now, there is work being done in the House to introduce postal reform legislation this year, and it may include some of those things, but all there is right now is sort of early stage draft language. And traditionally, it's been difficult to get the Ways and Means Committee to budge at all on Medicare integration. Now we have a new Congress, we have a Democratic president, and so there's perhaps more optimism that something can get done, but it's still a non-trivial hurdle to get over before any of those remedies can be implemented. What
would you like to see happen with the Postal Service? Obviously, what's happening now, you mentioned gridlock in December. I hear from professionals in the field that there's a question of reliability now on delivering first-class mail or others. What would you like to see the Postal Service do, its leadership implement to bring back confidence and also bring back a sound financial structure?
Well, and I hope it's not too late for this. Our main concern about the plan that we saw this week is that it was just developed with no external input whatsoever. The Postal Service did not consult with any customers or any customer organizations in their considerations about what the future looks like. And I think we would have taken a very different approach. I think the savings they will generate from those first-class mail service reductions appear to be fairly trivial. There's nothing in this plan designed to retain mail volume or even grow use of mail among commercial users, while we think there are significant opportunities for doing both. It relies much too heavily on price increases on customers who are captive users of monopoly products, and we think the Postal Service could have been much more creative in how they think about their products and services to keep mail a viable and vital product going in well into this century. So a real missed opportunity in not seeking out more external input. I hope they have not entirely closed the door, because we will be approaching them with some ideas in the next few weeks and months, and hope that they're receptive, because it would be much better for all concerned if the Postal Service took a collaborative approach and sought to partner with its customers rather than develop a plan on their own without any outside or external input.
And Michael Plunkett, President and CEO of the Association for Postal Commerce. Tell us a little bit about your organization, history, and some of the events and the way you serve mailers.
Sure, Ken. Well, Postcom is actually more than 70 years old. It's been around a very long time. It's older than the Postal Service, in fact. We're a trade association. We represent companies in all parts of the mailing industry. So we have, our membership includes senders of mail like banks and insurance companies and healthcare providers, but we also represent their suppliers, the printers, the logistics and trucking companies, and the software companies that provide mail tracking and other services. We also represent FedEx, UPS, and DHL. And we also represent other associations. And what we do for our members is a combination of advocacy and education. We're actively involved in litigation before the Postal Regulatory Commission on a number of issues. We engage in a lot of media outreach, and we provide educational services to our members to keep them abreast of postal affairs. You know, our members are important professionals within their organizations, but they don't really have the time to track the mail industry, and we do that for them.
And you have a history working for the United States Postal Service, over a decade working pricing innovation. Tell us a little about some of the work that you did when you were actually with the Postal Service.
Sure. So I did come up through the ranks. I started at Postal Headquarters as an economist and eventually took on some leadership positions in pricing and classification. Among the things we did while I was there, it was the implementation of the Forever Stamp, the Priority Mail flat rate box, and some other, I think, things that we're pretty proud of. I think we did a lot to try to advance pricing in the Postal Service. I was there when the law changed in 2006 and was involved in the transition to the new regulations that took place as a result of the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. And so I retired from the Postal Service in 2011, but kept an eye on the industry and then came back to join Postcom a few years ago and retain an active interest in everything the Postal Service does.
Well, we'll highlight the website for Postcom, your organization. Hope we can follow some of your events going forward. I just think, I always say thank you to every Postal Service worker who comes down our street, comes to our house in White Plains. We see them out with the trucks all weekend long delivering things, and we know there's a lot of veterans who work for the Postal Service. When you think about your colleagues and the workforce of the Postal Service and the effort that they make to deliver mail, they're often the first to deliver mail back after a natural disaster. We hear about that in Florida quite often. What are your thoughts about your colleagues and who you worked with at the Postal Service and those out there today?
Our members are devoted to the Postal Service. They depend on the organization for the survival of their businesses. And nobody cares more about the success of the Postal Service and the continued prosperity of the agency and its employees than our members. It's of critical importance to every person who's a part of Postcom. We sometimes disagree with them on the right way to ensure the survival of the organization or on the best way to prioritize their initiatives, but we would not exist without the Postal Service. And our member organizations would depend on the agency for their business survival. So it is of critical importance, and we understand how important it is to the citizenry and the economy of the United States. We would be a much worse country and much worse society without the Postal Service we've enjoyed for the last 200 plus years. Our job is to try to make sure that it survives. It provides the kinds of services that are reliable and affordable for the American public. And as I hope I've said, we are always ready and eager to collaborate with the Postal Service on making that happen.
Absolutely. Always go out of my way to say thank you to the Postal Service workers going out in all weather to deliver the mail for ourselves and for our clients. Michael Plunkett, great to talk with you today, President and CEO of the Association for Postal Commerce. Look forward to following your programs and activities going forward. Great to chat with you today.
Thank you, Ken. It was a pleasure. Anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's Ken Kraetzer for CBSIServices based in Harrison, New York. Our company provides insurance-based benefits to the credit card and payments industry. And I always say thank you to our team working at home, taking care of our clients and customers during the pandemic. So again, this is CBSIServices Talking Business and Ken Kraetzer from my home office in White Plains, New York. Have a great day, everyone.